We are going to be revising adjective agreements through comparative structures. Just pause the video and discuss what an adjective is and what I mean by those agreements. Okay, so hopefully you discussed with your partner that adjectives are describing words, they describe the noun. And with agreements, with Spanish in particular, we are looking at things that are singular and plural, and that masculine and that feminine. We're going to be looking at those school subjects again. Can you, with your partner, remind yourself of how many school subjects you remember in Spanish? Pause and come back. Okay, so hopefully you thought of things like la geografía, la música, el francés, el inglés, las matemáticas, el español, las ciencias, la tecnología, el dibujo. You might have said el arte, and we have la educación física. It's really important you notice where these accents are, okay? So towards the end on these ear ones, we need to really stress it. So geografía, tecnología. Okay, educación física. Okay, every time there's an accent, you need to go up. That's why it's angled that way. And with this squiggle above the end, known as a tilde, you need to scrunch your nose. Español, ñol is what we're looking for. Okay, brilliant. So, adjective agreements. On the handout in front of you, you should see the table already with the answers in front of you. So I'm just going to explain why it is the way it is. So if the adjective originally ends in O, for example, divertido, it stays like that and then changes for the feminine, singular, masculine, plural, feminine, plural. If the adjective already ends in an E, for example, interesante, then it stays the same for the singular and we just add an S for the plural. If it's a consonant, for example, útil, to mean useful, we leave it. That's why we've got these dashes, okay? And then you add es, es. So útil, útil, útiles, útiles. This is really important for today's lesson. So what is a comparative? A comparative is when you are comparing two things. For example, this picture. I have two apples. This apple is more green than that apple. Okay, they are the same size as each other. I'm comparing them both. And in Spanish, we need to break it down a little bit more to say it is more big than, or if we're talking about someone, she is less funny than. All right? Excuse me. The adjective must agree with the noun that you are describing at the beginning of the structure. That is super important. Okay? So these are the structures we are going to be having a look at today. Don't worry about the bottom ones. If you could just pause the video and write down in Spanish the ones which I am highlighting in yellow, that would be absolutely fantastic so that you know which ones you are going to need. Pause the video and come back when you're ready. Okay, so when something is more than, más something que. When something is less than, menos something que. And when something is as something, so we're talking about how equal something is, tan something como. Like the example at the bottom here. Let me highlight that in green for you. So, mi profe de ciencias es tan serio como mi profe de inglés. My science teacher is as serious as my English teacher. So, when do I use es and when do I use son? These are key verbs that we need for today. Have a quick chat with your partner and come back for the answers. So es, we know means it is, and it's used for those singular subjects. For example, me gusta el español porque es divertido, because it is. And son is for that plural subject because we're saying they are. So the example on the screen is no me gustan las ciencias porque son aburridas. Okay? Why have I circled these? Have a chat with the person next to you. Come back for the answer. Okay, so hopefully the reason you have discussed is that divertido is masculine, so it agrees with español. So these are all to do with our opinions, and this is stuff you've seen plenty of times before, and we need to remember this for today. Then we have aburridas, which links to ciencias. Okay, so we're always going back and agreeing. Remember that for today. So on the handout, you have this screenshot. You have got to complete the blue box with what is missing using the English to help you. So the first one is missing more interesting than. The next one is missing less practical than. Less cool than, more boring, less fun, and more difficult. Use your Module 3 knowledge organiser to help you. Talk to your partner if needed, and only practice in the masculine form. Okay, so it's either going to be masculine singular or masculine plural. No more than sort of 4 minutes on the sheet and come back for the answers. Okay, so here are your answers. Es más interesante que, menos práctico que, menos guay que, son más aburridos que, because we go to the plural, menos divertido, and más difíciles. Oh, I've actually spelled that wrong there. Apologies there. There should be an extra I there with an accent on the second one. Okay, so purple pen that. Make sure you've got that to help you for the next task. Moving on. The comparative structure, you have this on your handout in full. I'm just going to break it down for you step by step. We start off with the school subject. We then add es or son, depending if the school subject is singular or plural. We then need to add más, menos, or tan for if something is more, less, or as. The adjective comes afterwards, followed by que, como. So you need to work straight across. Okay, so where the red line is, you make sure that word lines up with the first one. And then you have your second school subject because you're comparing two. Your adjective agrees with your first one. Okay, so have that in front of you. And in your books, we are going to practice using some pictures to help you write that answer. So we've got Spanish flag, a plus sign, interesante, and the French flag. Can you write this in your books so that it says Spanish is more interesting than France? Pause the video for a minute and come back. Answer appearing in 3, 2, 1. El español es más interesante que el francés. Okay, some people normally miss the es because they see the picture, the sign, and the adjective, and they forget we need our verb here. Okay, so don't forget that. Same again. So we've got an English flag talking about the subject English. We've got a negative sign here, negative. And then we've got fun, divertido, and we've got a music sign. So English is less fun than music. Answer in 3, 2, 1. El inglés es menos divertido que la música. So agreeing divertido with the inglés. Don't forget that accent, otherwise you're talking about an interesting part of the body. And we need an accent on música. Let's go for another one. So we've got PE is less informative than science. Notice how this is feminine because we need to start our sentence with la. The PE is less informative than science. Pause the video, come back for the answers. And your answer is in 3, 2, 1. La educación física, don't forget those accents, es menos informativa que las ciencias. So informativa, agreeing with your la. Last one. Picture for art. We're talking about it being more boring than not Henry VIII, but history. Pause the video, come back for the answers. Answer showing in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. So el dibujo or el arte es más aburrido que la historia because we are looking at dibujo and that being the boring thing. Okay. Please make sure you've got them corrected in your book. Go back in the video to look at the answers to make sure. Otherwise, let's move on. Okay, so we have two subjects that we've been learning that are feminine plural. So the verb changes. We're not going to use es, we're going to use son. Okay, so our adjective also needs to be feminine plural. We're going to do exactly the same again, and all I want you to do is finish off this bit here. For example, more boring than music. So your boring needs to be feminine plural, FPL. Okay, pause the video and write this little bit in your book. Answer in 3, 2, 1. Más aburridas que la música, because this agrees with both ciencias and matemáticas. Number 2, less interesting than, PE. Come back for the answer. Answer in 3, 2, 1. Menos interesantes que. If you put interesantas, I totally understand why you've done that, because you've got aburridas up here. But remember, interesante is the original adjective, so we keep it as an E and we just add an S. Number 3, here you go. Have a look in your knowledge organizer for creative if you can't remember it. And let's show our answer in 3, 2, 1. Menos creativas que el arte, or you could have put el dibujo. Last one, number 4. More fun than geography. More fun than geography. Come back for the answer. Answer showing in 3, 2, 1. Más divertidas que la geografía. Hopefully you got that all right. If you didn't, just make the corrections in your book. It's not a problem. And let's move on. Okay, so this is going to be this is either your final task or your second to last task, depending on where you've got to in the hours lesson. Okay, so this is a dictation, and you're going to write everything out in your book, on the handout. Sorry. So turn the handover over, and you've got some sentences with gaps. If you think you need that help to fill in the gaps in Spanish, you go for green. If you want the challenge, get rid of the handout, hide it, and write out the sentence in Spanish in your book. That's what a dictation is. I speak in Spanish, you write in Spanish. Do not translate. Okay? Number 1, here we go. El español es más divertido que el francés. Number 2. La música es más creativa que el inglés. Number 3. La tecnología es menos práctica que las matemáticas. Number 4. Las ciencias son menos interesantes que la historia. Number 5. Los laboratorios son menos interesantes que el gimnasio. And number 6. El comedor es más divertido que el patio. I realised that was quite fast, so do go back, pause, play again, and see what you come up with. Answers appearing in 3, 2, 1. Here are your 6 answers. The words in bold are the ones for the green task. If you went for red, I'm expecting everything to be in your book. Pause the video to complete the answers, and let's move on. Your final task is on the handout. You need to decide if it is correcto or incorrecto. No es correcto. Okay? Have I written out the comparative correctly? Does it agree? Are there any words missing? Okay, so spend some time by yourself. Let's bring all of that learning together and then come back for the answers. So the first one is correct. The second one is correct. The third one is incorrect because it's missing que. So menos serio que. Next one is incorrect because it's missing más or menos. And the last one is correct.